Europe spent years trying to get rid of Russian gas. By law, it now has to. And yet right now, one pipeline is still pumping it in at full capacity. Not a trickle. A working pipeline moving billions of cubic meters, even as the continent it feeds has voted to shut that gas out. Its name is TurkStream, and it's the last one, the final Russian gas pipeline still feeding Europe after every other route went quiet. Which raises an obvious question. If Europe has decided it wants this gas gone and has written that into law, how is it still arriving? The answer is stranger, and more important than a headline can hold. So let's follow one pipeline and find out why a continent can ban something and still not switch it off. Start with the number that shouldn't exist. In 2025, as the ban was being finalized, TurkStream delivered 16.8 billion cubic meters of gas. That topped its own nominal capacity, up 8% on the year before. As Europe legislated its way out of Russian gas, this one pipeline ran harder than ever. It carried around 5% of all the pipeline gas Europe imported. And it's the only Russian route left standing. Once, Russian gas reached Europe through several corridors. One by one, they fell silent. This is the last pipe still open. So why can't Europe simply close it? Here's the part that matters. The reason isn't really politics, it's physics, and it's built into the ground itself. Because a pipeline is not a contract you cancel. It's steel in the ground, a fixed physical link that ties a buyer and a seller together for decades the moment it's laid. Gas isn't like oil. Oil moves on ships to any port from any seller. You can switch suppliers overnight. Pipeline gas can only go where the pipe already goes. So if your country is connected to one pipe, and that pipe runs back to Russia, you don't have a supplier you can swap. You have a piece of geography you're bolted to. To see how that trap was built, look at the pipe itself. TurkStream runs from the Russian coast near the town of Anapa, out under the Black Sea. Two parallel steel lines, each roughly 930 kilometers long, laid across the seabed, each able to carry around 15.75 billion cubic meters of gas a year. It comes ashore in Turkey. One line feeds the Turkish market. The second pushes onward into southeastern and central Europe, through Bulgaria, then Serbia, then Hungary. It's operated by Russia's Gazprom, together with Turkey's state pipeline company. It began flowing at the start of 2020, and it cost billions to build. And it was built with a purpose, to create a direct path for Russian gas into Europe that bypassed the older overland corridors entirely. A new route, carved under the sea. At the time, that looked like options. Another way in, more flexibility. But every pipe that gets built is also a new dependency quietly setting into place. Because once the steel is down and the gas is flowing, the countries at the end of it reorganize around it. Their heating, their industry, their winters. And that's the quiet hook of all fixed infrastructure. If this is the kind of thing you want to understand, the steel beneath the headlines, subscribe. Now, how it became the last one. For decades, most Russian gas reached Europe by land, across a long overland corridor to the north. Enormous volumes flowing west year after year. Then, at the start of 2025, that overland route closed. The largest historic pathway for Russian pipeline gas into Europe simply went quiet. And the effect was immediate. Slovakia, which had relied on that overland gas, saw its Russian supply stop almost overnight at the turn of the year. Within weeks, it began drawing gas a different way, through TurkStream. The southern route, under the sea, became the new lifeline once the northern one was gone. That's how a backup became the main artery. With the other corridors silent, TurkStream wasn't one option among many. It was the only Russian pipe still delivering. And the countries still on it leaned in. Hungary took over 7 billion cubic meters of Russian gas across 2025, a core part of how it keeps the lights on and the heat running. Serbia, just outside the EU, kept buying too, around 2.2 billion cubic meters a year, on a string of short-term extensions, priced against the oil market. Short-term, that word matters. The supplier offered no long, comfortable contract, just renewal after renewal, which tells you how fragile and how necessary this last route has become. Now the deeper question. The EU has banned this gas, so why don't the countries still on the pipe just stop? The answer is written into the map. Look at where they sit. These are largely landlocked countries, no coastline. And without a coast, there's nowhere to dock a tanker, nowhere to build an import terminal for seaborne gas. And seaborne gas is exactly what's replacing Russian supply across Europe, much of it now shipped in from the United States. But to land it, you need a coast and a terminal. A landlocked country has neither. So their only real connection to the world's gas is the pipes they're already wired to. And for some of them, the pipe with the most capacity still runs back toward Russia. To switch suppliers, they'd need new pipelines built to them or new routes opened through their neighbors. That means construction, agreements, and years, not a decision you make in a season. This is the heart of it. Their dependence isn't mainly a choice. It's a physical fact. The infrastructure that exists decides what's possible, long before politics gets a say, which is why the EU ban arrives in stages, not all at once. A first prohibition on short-term pipeline deals took effect in the middle of 2026, and the full pipeline ban, the one that closes the last contracts, lands later in the autumn of 2027. The deadline is real, but it's deliberately slow. Why so slow? You can't unwire a country overnight without cold homes and stalled factories. The phase-out moves at the speed of new infrastructure, not new law. So the gas keeps flowing, legally, for now, down the last open pipe. Not because anyone loves it, because steel can't be replaced as fast as rules can be written. Step back, and the lesson is bigger than this one pipe. It's a rule about infrastructure itself. Build a fixed link, and you build a dependency that outlasts the reason you built it. A pipeline laid in 2020 still shapes what a country can do in 2027. The politics changed completely. The steel didn't move an inch, and it's the same shape everywhere you look. A power cable across a border, a single port a country's trade flows through, a grid wired to one neighbor. Each one looks like connection. Each is also a leash. The moment it exists, the country at the end organizes its life around it and loses the ability to walk away cheaply. The exit even bends to the seasons. The final cutoff can slip later still if gas storage isn't full enough heading into winter. Even the law has to wait on the tanks. You can sign a ban in a single afternoon. You can't build a new pipeline or a new coast in one. So the old steel keeps deciding, while the new steel slowly catches up. And it cuts forward too. Every new pipe, cable, or terminal signed today is tomorrow's lock-in. The dependencies of the next decade are being set in concrete right now. TurkStream sits right in that gap, banned in principle, flowing in fact, held open not by anyone's will, but by the simple slowness of the physical world. So when you hear that Europe has banned Russian gas, you know what to watch, not the vote, the valves. They'll tell you when it's truly over. One pipeline, 16.8 billion cubic meters in a single year. A handful of landlocked countries with nowhere else to turn. And a deadline that has to move at the speed of construction. That's the real story of the last Russian pipe. Not loyalty, not defiance. Just homes, factories, and winters wired to a decision made years before. So the next time a country seems unable to leave a supplier, look past the politics. Look for the pipe, the cable, the port. The fixed thing quietly making the choice. Because infrastructure is the most patient kind of power. It doesn't argue, it doesn't vote. It sits in the ground and shapes what everyone else can do. A continent voted, a pipeline kept flowing, and the gap between the two is where you'll find the real shape of power.